So first you're going to want to, there's two clips in this little bucket here. You just pop them down. Mine broke out already because the last time I took them. But you'll take them, you'll see there's, in yours there should be clips here and here. And you're just going to bend them down a little bit gently, and this will come right out. And then your next step you're going to want to do is push this ashtray piece down and pull that right out. And the next step is to remove these two screws, one right here and one right here. And then you're going to want to remove two more screws, which will be right in your ashtray area. There'll be two screws here, one on the right side and one on the left side of your ashtray. Alright, so you got that part out. If you want, you can take your gear shifter and put your keys in the ignition. This will just give you a little more room to work with. You put your key in the ignition, put your parking brake on, you can move the gear shifter to the back, so now you have a little more room to work here. And just take this, and it has little friction clips in here, and go ahead and pull on it, and you'll see that it comes out. You'll want to take some clips off for all your switches, and this will get the panel out of the way. And now that should give me enough room to get my stereo out. Now the stereo comes out with 4 screws. See if I can point to them. You have one screw here, one screw up here, one screw here, and one here. So take those out. Now we've got our stereo loose. You can pull this sucker out, and you'll see there's a series of plugs behind it. You've got your antenna plug, you'll pull that out. The antenna plug goes right here in this hole here, and then you have your other plug here. Probably not going to be able to hold the camera, but you want to take that plug out, and that will remove your stereo out of here. And there's your stereo, a good piece of machinery with a cassette deck. And look at this, boys and girls. Oh yeah, a good year, 1996, when I graduated high school. So keep this thing as a paperweight, and we'll install our new stereo here in a bit. Check it out, check it out. You get 2 plugs. If you order this from Crutchfield, it comes with 2 plugs. Wherever you get this from, you should be able to get your adapter plugs that you're going to wire into your stereo. You'll see these 2 ends here are going to connect to factory harness areas. So this little plug right here is going to connect to this one that's further back. It's a gray plug in my Toyota. And then this plug here is going to connect to this gray plug here. So I wanted to check these before I even tried to install the stereo. I wanted to check that they fit, and so they do. And now what we're going to do is take these ends and we're going to go splice them into our stereo's harness. Okay, boys and girls, this part is probably going to be a little different for every stereo system, but what you should get with your adapters, with these things, is you should get some kind of wiring diagram that comes with it, which I have for my 2 adapters. And then you should, with your stereo, get an adapter that's going to plug into the back of the stereo, one of these, and then the end wires here are going to splice into these sets of wires here. For the Land Cruiser, you happen to have these both, okay? So you're going to splice these wires by matching whatever they say. Like if it says for your ground, it's a black, then you're going to want to check that with your stereo's color wire and say, hey, is the black the ground on the stereo? Okay, if it is, you're going to go ahead and take these wires, and there's 2 methods to connect these together. I'm going to go ahead and solder mine. I'm not going to record that, but I'm going to go ahead and twist these wires together and solder them together. What you can also do is they sell, what a lot of the stereo shops do, is they have these crimp connectors. You'll twist the wires together, put one crimp connector on it, and click it together. And that's a pretty good method. Since I plan on keeping this car for pretty much ever, I'm going to go ahead and solder them together and put a little bit of heat shrink wrapping around them. So before you connect all your wires to the stereo adapter, go ahead and get all your heat shrink tubing on here already, so that after you connect them, you won't go, oh man, I forgot to put the heat shrink wrap on there. And then when you connect them, you'll just slide them up and over the connection and then heat them up, and that'll seal it off. Alright, so I soldered these together. You can see like my wires are all soldered together here. It'll look like you kind of have a mess, but it's just something you'll have to deal with. It's not that big of a deal. You'll figure out where the wires go. They all are color coded. So you take your heat shrink wrapping, which you should have already put on the wire, and you'll just put it over your little joint, and then you can either use, usually with this heat shrink wrapping, you can either use a lighter, and just be careful not to melt it, and you just warm it up, and you can see it conforms right to the joint there. So and then you do that for all the rest of your wires, and then we'll go hook the stereo up. Alright, I've done all my heat shrinking. You can see it looks really nice and professional. Some wires you may not use depending on what your situation is. I go ahead and just fold the wire over and then put a piece of heat shrink over it and just wrap it so that it doesn't touch anything. A lot of the wires that you don't use usually are inputs, like this one here is a mute input, and then this one right here would be my for my backup camera. It would tell my camera to turn on when I put it in reverse. So that's an input. If you know for sure what they are, you can go ahead and leave them uncapped, but if not, just go ahead and cap them off. However you do it, put a piece of tape on it, put a crimp on it, do whatever you got to do to tape, just make sure they don't touch any metal back there. Now check it out. Your old stereo has this little bracket on the side here. So you're going to do is take these screws out, transfer this bracket to your new stereo over here. Now your new system will probably come with a little set of screws. You can see I took this off of here, off my old Toyota deck, and just transferred it over to my new deck. And just make sure things look like they're lining up. You can see the top here sticks a little over the top of your old radio, and when you stick it on my new Pioneer deck, it does the same thing. So that looks like a good fit. So we're going to go ahead and screw that on there. You'll probably want to use the screws they gave you as the it's set up for a more rough thread, and the Toyota screws are very fine thread. So go ahead and use your new screws on your new deck. Just do that for both sides. Put your brackets on there. And now your whole stereo setup is putting it back in, is now that you've tested it and you saw that the plugs work, plug your antenna back right into that hole there, plug your stereo plug into there, and then you'll put everything back together to include your new stereo the same as you did your old one when you took it out. There's our new Pioneer stereo. If you have any questions, leave them for me. This is a pretty straightforward setup. You can get way more in depth by adding amps. If you have the sidewall amp and underneath the kick panel, you might want to bypass that. But let me tell you, I can already tell this is at the very lowest volume setting right now, and it sounds amazing compared to the junk, well, whatever you want to call this old Toyota deck right here. This is what we went from cassette to iPod compatibility, USB compatibility, DVD player. I think you can play CDs in it, of course. I think you can plug a data stick in here. There's just a lot more options. Add navigation, rear backup camera. So enjoy, guys. I hope you do this and have a better sounding time in your Toyota. Check it out. If you like my videos and like my tutorials, go ahead and click that green tire on the left to subscribe, and I'll keep coming up with more stuff for you guys. Thanks.